Now, if these don't look like simultaneous mushroom clouds detonating, then clearly you haven't had enough to drink yet. There's a whole category of food in Russia called beer snacks that can be almost anything salty, savory, and preferably a bit spicy. Something that makes you order another beer or three. The original recipe for these is pretty heavy on the fishy flavor, but I'm giving you some options here if you aren't a big fan of sardines, so don't worry when you see the list of ingredients.
Well, the first step here is to try to reduce some of the strength of the flavor of these sardines. Use a good quality sardine, pick it out of the oil, and soak it in water. Now we have the ingredients laid out into the food processor bowl. I've got 300 grams of potato that's already been cooked to the point where it's kind of soft and crumbly, but it's not mushy. I've got the flour, 25 grams of buckwheat flour. You can substitute this with just additional regular flour. The buckwheat will give it a better flavor overall and some interesting background notes. If you have volume 3 of my cookbook series, there's another twist to this that you can add in, but it's too complicated to explain in the video. The 60 grams of peas, 1 whole egg, 45 grams of onion. I'm going to give this a coarse chop before I put it in with the food processor. The black pepper, and now the cleaned up sardine. This has been rinsed, and I carefully picked through it and pulled all the spine bones out of it. The potato and the onion's already in there. Here's the peas. These are canned peas, by the way. Don't use frozen. The canned have a specific taste that goes with this dish. The black pepper, buckwheat flour, cleaned up sardines, egg yolk, flour, and after a minute or so you end up with something that's quite dough-like in consistency like this. Now we're going to turn this out. Now we have a kind of dough like this. Cover it and let it stand for about 15 minutes before we continue. Now after the dough is rested, you can use different size trays and do it different ways. I'm using this ice cube tray, the silicone ice cube tray. Takes a couple minutes. Then, when you've got them all filled up to the top, take a knife, kind of wipe off the top like this. Got plenty of batter to make a lot more of these. But the thing is that once they're frozen, you can transfer them to bags, and they keep for a very long time before you don't have to cook them and use them right away. So now this goes into the freezer. Then you get a pot of water, boiling water, and you just break these out of the molds and put them in. You don't have to do them all at once either. You can leave them frozen, take out what you need. When the water returns to a boil, you begin counting the time. After 3 or 4 minutes, they begin floating to the top, but they're not done cooking yet. Meanwhile, prepare au gratin dishes like this by spooning out the cherry poppins tomato sauce onto them and preheat your broiler.
After the 10 minutes is up, get them out of the boiling water with a spider, transfer them to a plate where they can cool down a little bit, and then position them on the au gratin dish in the cherry poppins sauce, flat side down of course, and leave a little bit of space between them so that when the person's eating it, there's sauce to go with each one.
After 5 or 6 minutes into the broiler, your time will vary. We get some browning on the top. The tomato sauce is bubbling. Now I'm going to add some of this Louisiana crumble over the top. You can just use plain breadcrumbs if you want. Obviously this is going to have far more flavor. and then it gets returned to the broiler for the last minute or so.
The second volume of my cookbook is now available through Amazon and other booksellers. It covers the YouTube recipes from the last 8 months with more in-depth information. I received requests for the procedures on all recipes, and I've listened to you. Every recipe has step-by-step directions, and of course there are recipes that aren't on YouTube. But this is not just a recipe book. Far from it, as you can see from some of the topics scrolling by here. I'm certain that anyone who watches my channel and any serious cook will find this book a treasury of useful and new information you won't find anywhere else. If you want to know more about my adventures as a chef around the world and have some great laughs along the way, be sure to check out the video tour of my book, 40 Years in One Night. It's up on YouTube right now. Click the link. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.